did you notice when I walked out on stage today? A woman with great hair and an awesome fashion sense? Yes, but also a woman without a whole body. Children have a natural curiosity, and I always encourage them to ask me questions and learn more about how people live differently than themselves. If I notice that a kid is being shy and is afraid to ask me questions, I often say, "Hey, did you notice I have a robot leg?" And that usually gets them talking. Sometimes I even tell them, "This is what happens when you don't eat your vegetables." But what I want you to understand is that not having a whole body has given me a whole life. My leg was no longer functioning for me, and so I had to let it go so that I could live freely. Now, as you sit here and listen today, I hope that you will ask yourself what you're holding on to that's no longer serving you. When I was 11 years old, my mother and I were taking a walk on our family farm, and I remember saying to her that I felt like I had a toothache in my shin bone. The next day, we were in the car on the way to Boston Children's Hospital, and I said, "You know, Mom, I hope they give me crutches. They look like a lot of fun." Well, be careful what you wish for. The first test that they ran was a bone scan. And I remember watching in horror as a red, angry ball appeared on the screen below my right knee. I knew before anybody said anything that there was something seriously wrong with my leg. A biopsy confirmed that I had osteosarcoma, a rare bone cancer that hits during growth spurts. Luckily, we caught it very early before it had the opportunity to spread, which meant that it was easier to treat. With an 80% cure rate, we considered it a good cancer. I remember a meeting in my hospital room with my medical team. The head of pediatric oncology, Dr. Gorin, was sitting on my bed, and he was explaining to me that my mother and my doctors felt that I was too young to make such a big decision for myself, and a computer was going to decide what surgery I had. I looked Dr. Gorin directly in the eyes. I was 11 years old. And I said, "There's one person I don't want in this room, and he's sitting on the foot of my bed." My mother followed Dr. Gorin into the hall, apologizing profusely, because this is the man who's going to save my life. And he stopped her mid-sentence and said, "Sandy, don't worry about it. She's a fighter, and she's going to make it." Thank you. Luckily, the computer chose what I wanted. I had a 17-and-a-half-hour surgery, a transplant of the top third of my tibia, followed by 22 rounds of chemotherapy over the next 13 months. Over the coming years, I had about a dozen more surgeries on my leg, and I joked with my surgeon that they probably should have put a zipper in my leg. But I had two legs through middle school and high school. I went off to college in Charleston, South Carolina. I learned how to make she crab soup. I swam in the ocean, the Atlantic, in February. I shucked oysters on barrier islands. I was focused on becoming a chef, and I thought that I was in the clear. But in my senior year, I noticed that my scar over my tibia was red and angry and hot to the touch. and I was referred to a doctor in South Carolina for yet another operation. I started physical therapy and tried to get back to my normal routine, but I knew that something wasn't right. Do you ever have that feeling? You might try to push it down, but it has a way of coming back up. I'm alive today because I listen to that voice. I remember feeling extremely exhausted, and I started passing out randomly. And I called my mom, and she had me on the next flight home. She told me, well, I was 2 weeks shy of graduating from college. My mom told me that I looked worse when I got off that plane than I had when I was going through chemotherapy. I'm convinced that if I'd stayed in South Carolina, I would have died. I was diagnosed with a rare staph infection in my donor bone, and I was put on heavy-duty antibiotics for the next year. I managed to go back to college and graduate, but instead of launching into my adult life, I returned home, and my world got very small. I sat my doctors down, and I told them that I needed to go off of the antibiotics, and if the infection came back, that we would have to reassess options. Well, it came back with a vengeance. I was faced with a choice. I could keep a leg that would make me sick for the rest of my life, a life that would probably be shortened, would certainly be much less fun, or I could amputate my leg and live untethered, free to live my life on my terms. As human beings, we are often faced with choices. One thing that never stops is that we're constantly changing. And so it's important for us to take a time out and to reassess, is this decision still serving me? In my case, it wasn't. And luckily, my doctors knew me well enough to know that I was going to be okay as an amputee. And my surgeon is here today, and he told me today that I never looked back, which is 100% true. I was 25 years old when I had my leg amputated above the knee. And within a few months, I was fit for a new prosthetic leg. I was excited to regain my normal functionality, but I hated it. It really slowed me down. I tried for a year to make it work, and then I ditched the leg and I ran around on crutches for the next 6 years. I had a lot of fun on crutches. Kicking open doors, jumping over puddles. At full speed, you would have to run to keep up with me. I got so good on crutches that I was able to do my own grocery shopping. I can carry a squirming cat. I've even cooked Thanksgiving dinner for 30. During that time, technology and my insurance had come a long way, and I now had the opportunity to get a new prosthetic leg complete with our microprocessor knee. But I was stuck in my new one-legged normal. I didn't want to be slowed down by a prosthetic leg. Once again, is this decision still serving me? My crutches had become my new crutch. And I had to be brave enough, again, to try something different. My new leg, it's programmed via Bluetooth. No, it doesn't have any speakers, but that's okay. It gives me resistance if I trip so that I don't fall flat on my face. It can be programmed for different activities, like holding a golf swing stance. I don't actually play golf, but... And I even have an adjustable ankle now that allows me to walk on heels. I was very surprised to learn that it's actually easier to walk on heels. I think it's because I have a shorter heel-to-toe radius. Anyway. It was an important lesson to me because I was holding onto a fear of falling, and in my mind, I thought it would be harder to walk on heels. Surprise, surprise, when you try something new, you might find out you were wrong the whole time. Now, I'm not going to stand here and tell you that living life as an amputee is easier, because it's not. It comes with its own challenges. Online dating was particularly challenging. I learned early on that I couldn't use words like prosthetic, crutches, or amputee in my profiles. All of those words attract people with fetishes. But it does have its benefits. A pair of socks goes twice as far. It takes me half as long to shave my legs. I even negotiated half off on pedicures. Living life as an amputee just comes down to better planning. My leg holds a 48-hour charge. It has fallen off, so when I stand up, I have to make sure that I have a good suction fit before I start walking. And when I go ziplining this summer, I have to decide, where am I going to leave my leg? The top or the bottom? Most importantly, I had to learn how to fall and get back up again. But don't we all? I'm telling you this story today in hopes that I can inspire you to ask yourself, what is holding you back from being your whole self? Thank you.